Proof of stake is not a substitute for proof of work. That was one of the most memorable quotes from Bitfury CEO Brian Brooks out of the first congressional hearing on Bitcoin mining. Hi, I'm Natalie Brunell for Bitcoin Magazine, and we're breaking down the latest from Washington. Now, that hearing took place on Thursday after a U.S. House subcommittee called for it in order to get a better understanding of the environmental impacts of the cryptocurrency industry. In the opening statement, Democratic Congresswoman Diana DeGette of Colorado said that despite the promising applications of Bitcoin and, quote, blockchain technology, mining's energy usage and carbon emissions ought to be at the forefront of discussions about cryptocurrency. Now, the misunderstandings and misconceptions of the industry were clear from many of the hearing participants. Another representative, Democrat Frank Pallone, said, quote, "We cannot bring retired fossil fuel plants back online or delay the retirement of some of our oldest and least efficient plants in support of energy-intensive crypto mining." Pallone heads the Energy and Commerce Committee, and the hearing featured 5 witnesses who testified on their knowledge of the power consumption of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, as well as their legitimacy. They are right here: Brian Brooks, Stephen Wright, Ari Jules, John Belizaire, and Gregory Zerzan. I would argue Brooks was by far the most memorable and well-spoken of that group, getting lots of praise on Twitter after the hearing for sharing his excellent, well-articulated understanding of Bitcoin's proof of work consensus mechanism, being able to explain to the subcommittee why proof of work is needed and can't be substituted by proof of stake. Brooks, again, is the CEO of Bitcoin miner Bitfury and former acting controller of the currency. He argued mining is economically productive and said that it isn't fitting for policymakers to decide whether Bitcoin represents a good use of energy. That's a decision that should be left to the market to dictate, the free market. Now, Brooks also highlighted how Bitcoin can actually help the energy economy of the United States. He said, quote, "Bitcoin is like an energy derivative. It provides real-time price signals to the market about the most valuable use of energy in a given place. The vast majority of industrial-scale Bitcoin miners are the price transmission belt of all of the energy globally." He went on to explain that his company virtually only deploys mining operations in joint ventures with utility or renewable providers because they can only make the economics work if there's a base load consumer there, and that's almost always Bitcoin mining. He said, quote, "All of our projects are, some utility says we can't build another plant unless you will come and be our interruptible source of base load consumption. That's the beauty of Bitcoin mining." John Belizaire, CEO of Soluna Computing, told Bitcoin Magazine in an interview after the hearing that Bitcoin can't take the risk to shift to POS, a consensus mechanism that may actually undermine what has given Bitcoin its strength and growth. Belizaire added that consensus mechanisms other than proof of work reintroduce the centralized concept of trust, and that he sees Bitcoin and crypto as 2 separate things. Proof of stake also reminds a lot of us of the traditional fiat system that hasn't been working or serving so many people. Belizaire said, quote, "On the one hand, you say Bitcoin mining uses all of this energy, but it could be the catalyst for renewable energy. There are billions of dollars being stored in it every day, and it's launching all of this ecosystem and financial services." Unfortunately, we also heard very misinformed views about proof of stake from Cornell tech professor Ari Jules, who argued in favor of, quote, "energy efficient alternatives to proof of work mining," saying that Ethereum blockchain's transition to proof of stake would likely consume far less electricity and have features including smart contracts and non-fungible tokens. One of the quotes that frustrated Bitcoiners was when he said, "The tremendous promise of blockchain technology does not require Bitcoin or its energy-intensive component called proof of work." Now, we would, of course, argue and posit that Jules doesn't have a great fundamental understanding of proof of work and its design, or is speaking out of his vested interest in proof of stake protocols. Now, the big picture here is obviously very positive and bullish in that US lawmakers in recent years are giving Bitcoin and crypto a great deal of attention as the industry continues to grow. Back in December, they held a hearing on stable coins and another on the role of digital assets in the future of finance. But of course, there's still a lot of work to be done in educating US policymakers about the importance of Bitcoin and its consensus mechanism. Now, Bitcoiners are hopeful more pro-Bitcoin politicians are elected to effect smart regulation and encourage a pro-innovation environment that will positively impact the industry, mining, investors, and the economy as a whole. For more headlines, head to bitcoinmagazine.com.
What do you think are some things the government should be considering when developing ideas on how to encourage less energy-intensive efforts?
Well, Mr. Soto, thank you for the question, and thanks for all of your focus on this issue over the years. You're one of the real leaders in the Congress on it, and I know that you've been a huge intellectual source of support. What I would say is it's important to let markets and price signals work. And so when I hear policymakers, whether they're bank regulators or energy regulators or members of Congress, talk about whether this is a good use of energy, in my sort of Chicago school way of thinking, the best way to allocate energy is based on where the highest value user is. And so, we have a certain energy mix on our grid. It's 24% coal, it's X% solar, it's Y% natural gas, and other kinds of things. That's for a whole set of reasons having to do with transmission costs, mining costs, exploration costs, and those kinds of things. Bitcoin at some level in particular is like an energy derivative. It provides real-time price signals to the market about the most valuable use of energy in a given place. And I'll tell you the way I think about it in my current role. We virtually only deploy mining in joint ventures with utility providers or renewable providers. We don't go and buy a power plant and burn coal to support our Bitcoin mining. We talk to energy utility X, wind farm Y, and we build these things with them precisely because they can only make the economics work if there's a baseload consumer there, and that's almost always Bitcoin mining. So what I would tell you is there are interesting anecdotal stories of some small mining shop that buys a plant somewhere, and that might not be a good thing. I'm not defending that at all. But the vast majority of industrial-scale Bitcoin miners are the price transmission belt for all of energy globally. And so all of our projects are some utility says we can't build another plant unless you will come and be our interruptible source of baseload consumption. That's the beauty of Bitcoin mining.
Thank you, and my time is